Down again for Bitcoin as Bitcoin gets rejected from 65,500 on Monday, putting in another lower high. And in this video, we're going to go over some statistical setups for the downside, actually, and what those probably mean for the next 7 to 10 days, as we went over in yesterday's video and a few days prior than that as well, that if Bitcoin is going to experience downside, we probably see it happen within this next week to maybe 10 days or so span, maybe 2 weeks. But other than that, I want to remind myself, this is boring. This is boring as hell. Whenever things are boring as hell, I like to look at more experimental ideas. So I do want to say that this video is really for the TA nerds out there who are just, you're like me. You just look at this shit no matter what. So fair enough. Let's just jump right into it. I'm going to bring up probably one of the most controversial and polarizing ideas here, which is going to be this indicator right here, which is the moon phases indicator, because we do have the bare bunghole moon. And as you can see, anytime that we do get that blue moon right here, which I believe is a new moon. Hold on. Need to figure this one out. Is it a new moon or not? I need to know, because people always tell me in the comments, but I never really remember, because, well, I don't know if it matters all that much. Yes, it is a new moon. Okay, so that is traditionally the downside move for Bitcoin. So I decided to put it to the test. Does that actually work out long term? AKA, is there any validity to that statement? I did find that if we do test this from open of the new moon to the close of the full moon, if we go over the past full history for Bitcoin, 42.5% of those did close with profit. Again, short trade from the open to the close. That does not mean, by the way, that perhaps it traded lower before that next moon, the next basically 14 days. That's not what that means. It could have traded lower, but I did run tests on that, just closing it 7 days out or 10 days out. I didn't really find any improvement, so I decided to just go with the open and close here. Anyways, if we go to the performance summary, I do think that there are some maybe enlightening details that might help with understanding what's going on here. Let me just remove my face for a moment. And as you can see, for the average winning trade, it did return just over 11%, and on the average losing trade, losing on average just over 17%. So I did think that was rather interesting, because if we go back into this right here and actually look at the chart and do take this particular Tuesday or Wednesday as the as the start of this, well, if Bitcoin were to lose about 10-11%, that would put it on slightly new lows, closer to about $55,000. And of course, if Bitcoin were to gain about 17%, that would put Bitcoin close to about just above $73,000. So how can we fit this into the overall picture, or does this even fit into the overall picture that we have been looking at for the past couple of weeks, which basically on this channel I've been saying higher probability basically until the middle of May that Bitcoin plays out sideways and down, which we have been seeing. But after that, if Bitcoin is going to play some upside, that's when you would expect it to happen, as well as that daily setup that we went over, I believe, a couple days ago, which did suggest that by June, if Bitcoin is going to see upside, we probably do see actually continuation of new highs at $80,000. So does this fit into that? I would say yes. The reason why is because, again, we're just measuring from open to close here. So while there is technically a higher probability of this failing, there's almost a 60% probability of that upside being played out, which is a move of 17%. It doesn't mean that in the short term we can't see some sideways and down. It has 2 weeks to basically waddle around here and waste. So in the next week, do we see Bitcoin, play out a downside move? I would say still that is the most likely thing to happen in this next week. However, if Bitcoin fails to really trade significantly lower in the next 7 to 10 days, 14 days maximum, then I would really start to be favoring big upside. And when I say big upside, I mean new highs. I mean probably 80,000 in late June / early whatever the month is after that, July. And I think that actually plays better hand in hand with the traditional markets analysis, which we went over, I believe, yesterday, as I'm massively bullish on traditional markets, probably into 2026. So moving on from there, let me just bring up my notes over here, and we can get into some HPDR funness over here. Really had to peruse around the different time frames to find anything of value as of right now, just because things are tight. It's not really all that much going on. And on the 12-hour time frame here, we do see that Bitcoin is trading well above the median as of right now. But we can see that the HPDRV is starting to contract. So I would be looking for a general move closer to that median. Obviously, with each and every passing 12-hour period, which the next one ends in 4.5 hours, this will naturally move up. So Bitcoin is going to make a short-term downside move. We actually really would, we'd really expect it to start like within this next day. If Bitcoin fails to move to the downside from here within the next day or two at most, I'd say this will naturally catch up to current price action. It'll be a reset, and we just look at it with fresh eyes. But for right now, it does favor that downside. And just looking at overall trend here, which can be your friend, it can be your very best friend if you just let it be. It is to the downside. I mean, Bitcoin did just get another lower high at 65.5. So theoretically, or not theoretically, but quite fundamentally, as long as you're below there, trend has not changed. However, if the trend were to change, you'd very likely get first a higher low in this case, and that could potentially come around about low $62,000, which we have seen pretty close to on this downside move, but maybe another swing down around there, even if you're like super, super bullish. So fair enough. Anyways, moving on from there, should remind myself that stochastic momentum remains to the downside on all higher term time frames. So if we start off over here with the weekly remains downside pivoted as long as Bitcoin's below 70,800. 5-day is also downside pivoted as long as Bitcoin's below 70,000 even. 3-day time frame is going to cross again to the downside below 63,800, which it is right now, more than $1,000 below and closing tonight. 2-day time frame is actually going to be up above 60,250, so not bad right there. And daily time frame, I believe, is also up. Yeah, is up here as to at 60,750. So very high term time frames are still down. The somewhat lower end of that, the daily and the 2 days, starting to flip back onto the upside. And I do actually now recognize that on the daily time frame here, there is something new going on, particularly the last few lower highs that we have seen on daily stochastic momentum are, that is potentially going to get broken today. If Bitcoin does close above 60,750, actually, that would still play into my overall sentiment that if you are going to see downside, you see it in this next day or two. We'd really be expecting Bitcoin to come a lot closer to $60,000 even. And these highs on stochastic momentum mark off with this high right here, this high right here, this high right here, this high right here, and we would expect another high right here if that is going to continue. So we will very likely get resolution on this, in the next couple of days. I would say today, probably even. If you see Bitcoin back above like 64,000, that would be a really good step for the Bulos, or especially above just Monday's high. I can bring you over into a new indicator. This is the one that we have offered in conjunction, just as like an extra freebie with Krown Quant automation. We call it the trend wave, or the trend money catalyst. That is, it is compatible with the skeleton key or Krown Quant automation service, which you can build strategies around. In this case, I'm literally just using it as it is stock standard. And going down to the 4-hour time frame, I think that this accurately represents just the current range, the range as far as trend goes, and the most important pivot levels for that particular time frame. In this case, again, the 4-hour to the downside, 62,200. Okay, so maybe we actually already have seen that low $62,000 move play out, and if it does come back down around there, then probably spells problems, I guess. So let's see. I would have to say, if you are bearish, you should expect Bitcoin to break down today, like within this next day. If Bitcoin fails to start really breaking down before this next day is over, I would go as far as say probably starts to flip in favor of the Bulos. So yes, as far as the daily range goes, what do we have here? Much greater range, obviously. But with that in mind, it does, again, go over the significance of Monday's high. So this is kind of like a foolproof and idiot-proof way, just getting like the most important pivot points. So 65.5 would be that to the upside. If Bitcoin trades back above there, that's just obviously a reversal in favor of the Bulos. And we can talk about all of these more long-term models and what sort of price targets that they favor, again, coming into the end of this month and then again, end of June. But, still a long day left to go and a lot of work to do. And as of right now, that is a lower high in place. So we're looking for the flippening if you are bullish. Other than that, I really haven't been doing too much myself. Even my bot's been taking days off. doesn't really like to trade here when the trends are to the downside, but took a few over Jesus Christ, took a lot over this weekend. Like, it's how like uninvolved I am at this point. Like I just watch what my fucking bot does. I'm like, oh, it did do that. Great. Good job, bot. But fair enough. Had a rough April, losing 1.37%, but May's pretty good so far, actually, almost 3%. During these times, really just the key skill is waiting, just waiting for shit to happen. The obvious trading, I don't think that we necessarily have it just yet. But going over those ranges, those would be essentially the obvious resolutions. I do apologize for probably the less interesting content of the day, but that just is what it is sometimes. And can't really make up shit if it doesn't exist. I mean, as far as I'll go is the damn moons, and that's far enough for me already. It's always super funny too to see how like polarizing that is for people. Some people get like super triggered whenever you bring it up, and other people are like really fucking into it, where it's like, I study the moons in the third dimensional plane, and that's how I base my investment decisions. Like, all right, fucking crazy. I don't know. Maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe it really works. Who knows? But it's just like anything. Both extremes, not fucking interested. Somewhere in the middle is probably about where you want to be. At the end of the day, numbers are numbers, and it's probably a good place for me to be ending on this particular video. Hopefully you have something new to look at tomorrow. Again, main message of the day is that, the more that I look at things here, as we kind of progress through this video, if you are bearish, 2 days I think at most, and today you'd really expect to start to see the downfall. I'm not saying that you see like the full on downside move, but you really expect to see continuation to the downside. At least 62, probably a little bit below 62 to start this one off. If not, then this is going to start to reset, and it's not going to favor the blue loss today or tomorrow, but coming into next week, yeah, very likely. So, all right. Good place maybe leaving off as always. I'd like to wish you the best. Goodbye, my TA nerds. See you in the next one. Take care. Much love, and see you in the next one.